The morning light filtered through the star-patterned curtains of Timmy Turner's bedroom, casting a gentle glow across his sleeping form. For nearly 5 years, this ordinary room had been the epicenter of extraordinary adventures, a launching pad for journeys across dimensions, time periods, and realities that defied imagination. The walls had witnessed countless wishes, mistakes, lessons learned, and friendships forged in the fires of magical misadventures. Timmy stirred beneath his covers, his sleep disturbed by the persistent beeping of his alarm clock. His eyes remained shut, clinging desperately to the final fragments of a pleasant dream involving chocolate volcanoes and homework-eating dinosaurs. The familiar weight of his pink hat rested on his nightstand, a constant companion through years of magical mayhem. In a puff of pink and green smoke, Cosmo and Wanda materialized above his fishbowl. They exchanged knowing glances, their expressions a mixture of celebration and sorrow. Today marked a milestone they had witnessed countless times throughout their thousands of years as fairy godparents, the 13th birthday of their godchild. For Timmy Turner, this otherwise joyous occasion carried a bittersweet undercurrent that none of them wished to acknowledge. Cosmo, ever the lovable fool, attempted to brighten the mood by transforming Timmy's alarm clock into a rubber duck that quacked with increasing urgency. The chaotic magic of his wand sparked and fizzled, leaving behind the scent of burnt toast and cotton candy, a sensory signature as uniquely Cosmo as his perpetual misunderstandings of even the simplest concepts. With practiced patience, Wanda corrected her husband's magical mishap. Her pink hair swirled like cotton candy as she reversed the spell, her maternal instincts already preparing for the emotional turbulence the day would bring. For centuries, she had been the voice of reason in their fairy family, balancing Cosmo's impulsivity with wisdom earned through eons of magical service. Today, all her experience felt insufficient for the task ahead. When Timmy finally opened his eyes, he was greeted by the forced smiles of his fairy godparents hovering above him. The calendar on his wall displayed the date circled in red marker, May 21st, with birthday scrawled across it in his messy handwriting. For most children, turning 13 meant new privileges and a step closer to adulthood. For Timmy, it signaled the impending loss of the two beings who had transformed his neglected childhood into an extraordinary adventure. The realization crashed over him like a wave of ice water. His body went rigid, fingers clutching his bedsheets, as though they might anchor him to this moment, preventing time from advancing further. The color drained from his face as memories flashed before him, memories of Darul's book being opened to the page that clearly stated godchildren lose their fairies when they no longer need them, typically upon reaching adolescence. After years of narrow escapes, creative loopholes, and postponed inevitabilities, time had finally caught up with Timmy Turner. Throughout Dimsdale the day proceeded with unremarkable normalcy. Mr. Turner prepared for another day of selling pencils at his unrewarding job, blissfully unaware of the emotional crisis unfolding in his son's bedroom. Mrs. Turner busied herself with plans for Timmy's birthday dinner, having remembered her son's birthday for the first time in 3 years. Outside, the sadistic babysitter Vicky terrorized neighborhood children, while Timmy's teacher Mr. Crocker ranted about fairy godparents to an empty classroom, his body contorting with each utterance of fairies. But within the confines of Timmy's room, time seemed suspended between heartbeats. The trio sat in silence, the weight of their impending separation hanging in the air like a physical presence. Wanda, ever pragmatic, suggested they make the most of their final day together. Her voice carried forced cheerfulness, a transparent attempt to mask the tremor of emotion threatening to break through her composed exterior. Timmy's initial shock gradually transformed into determined resolve. He reached under his bed and pulled out a worn notebook labeled Emergency Wish List in crayon. Over the years, he had compiled ideas for critical situations, zombie apocalypses, alien invasions, and pop quizzes. On the final page, written in his most careful handwriting, was an entry titled Last Day with Cosmo and Wanda. He had created this contingency plan years ago, hoping it would never be needed. The list contained every significant adventure they had shared, from their first encounter to their most recent exploits. Timmy had methodically documented the memories that mattered most, understanding on some level that this day would eventually arrive. His plan was simple yet profound: to revisit the moments that had defined their relationship, creating a final day that encapsulated their entire journey together. Their first destination was Camelot, where Timmy had once wished himself into the role of a gallant knight. The medieval realm materialized around them in a swirl of magic, the stone castle walls and fluttering pennants exactly as Timmy remembered. Here, years ago, he had learned about bravery, not through the swing of a sword, but through the courage to admit when he was wrong. The knights recognized him bowing to Sir Timmy the Brave as he passed. This time, however, Timmy noticed details he had overlooked before, the genuine respect in their eyes, the way the kingdom had prospered under wise rule, all indirect results of lessons he had learned and applied during his previous visit. From the earthbound majesty of Camelot, they soared into the cosmic expanse of space. Stars streaked past them like brilliant comets as they approached a small green and purple planet rotating peacefully in the void. Planet Timmy, accidentally created during a wish gone awry, had evolved since his last visit. The tiny civilization of Timmy worshippers had developed into a peaceful society that had long since moved beyond their creator worship phase. They now studied the stars, created art, and lived in harmony, their entire cultural evolution indirectly shaped by the brief influence of a boy from Earth who had taught them about friendship and self-determination. As they observed the thriving planet from orbit, Timmy questioned Wanda about exceptions to fairy rules. His voice carried the desperate hope of a child seeking any possible escape from an unbearable reality. Wanda's explanation was gentle but firm. The rules existed to guide both fairies and children through natural life transitions. Magic could not solve every problem, she explained. The greatest gift of having fairy godparents wasn't the wishes themselves, but the lessons learned through them. Growing up meant facing challenges without magical intervention, applying the wisdom gained during their time together. Their cosmic voyage continued to the far reaches of the universe, where they surfed solar flares around dying stars and raced comets through asteroid fields. In these moments of exhilaration, they temporarily outpaced their sadness, leaving it light years behind as they experienced the pure joy of magical exploration one final time. Returning to Earth, they dove into the vibrant pages of Timmy's favorite comic book. The Crimson Chin welcomed them with his prominent jawline and booming voice, instantly recognizing his sidekick, Cleft, the boy Chin Wonder. The villains of Cincinnati had prepared a special battle royale, seemingly aware of the significance of this final visit. As Timmy donned his Cleft costume one last time, he fought alongside the Chin with unprecedented focus and skill. Each punch thrown and acrobatic maneuver executed reflected years of character development that had transformed a selfish boy into a hero worthy of the Chin's respect. The comic book adventure concluded with a ceremony where the Crimson Chin presented Timmy with a miniature bronze replica of his chin, the highest honor in the superhero's power to bestow. The medal was inscribed with words that somehow transcended the fictional boundary between comic and reality. To Timmy Turner, a true hero with or without a mask. As the afternoon progressed, they visited the prehistoric era where Timmy had once battled dinosaurs, the microscopic world inside his own bloodstream where he had fought anthropomorphic germs, and the alternate dimension where everyone's personality was reversed. Each location held memories that had shaped him, lessons that had molded his character, and experiences that had expanded his understanding of responsibility and consequence. Between adventures, they paused at Timmy's favorite ice cream parlor, ordering a triple fudge extreme sundae with extra everything, a concoction so massive it required 3 spoons and a liability waiver. As they shared this mountain of frozen sweetness, Timmy observed his fairy godparents with new perspective. Cosmo, despite his apparent idiocy, possessed wisdom in his unwavering capacity for joy and unconditional love. Wanda, beneath her nagging and worry, demonstrated strength through her endless patience and steadfast guidance. Together, they had become more than magical wish granters. They were the family Timmy's heart had always needed. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting Dimsdale in hues of amber and gold. Timmy requested one final location, the local park where he had first met Cosmo and Wanda disguised as odd-colored squirrels when he was 8 years old. The park was empty now, the swings moving gently in the evening breeze, the last rays of sunlight glinting off the metal slide where a lonely boy had once wished for friends who would stay with him always. They sat on the merry-go-round, its faded paint and squeaky mechanism unchanged by the passing years. Timmy ran his fingers over a carving he had made years ago, a crude representation of 2 smiling faces with crowns and wings. He had etched it during a moment when his parents had forgotten to pick him up, and Cosmo and Wanda had stayed with him until stars appeared in the twilight sky. That day, they had taught him that family wasn't defined by blood, but by who remained by your side when the world turned its back. As darkness fell over Dimsdale, they returned to Timmy's bedroom. The space felt smaller now, as though the impending separation had physically compressed the walls around them. Timmy sat on his bed, fingers tracing patterns on his comforter, avoiding the finality of eye contact. The digital clock on his nightstand displayed 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes remaining in his childhood, 2 minutes until the threshold of 13 officially separated him from the magical beings who had redefined his life. The heaviness in Timmy's chest condensed into a single crystallized thought. With one wish remaining, he could request anything. eternal youth, memory erasure for the fairy council, or countless other selfish desires that might extend his time with his fairy godparents. The old Timmy, the boy who had received Cosmo and Wanda 5 years ago, might have made such a wish without hesitation, but that boy no longer existed. In his place stood a young man shaped by hundreds of wishes, thousands of adventures, and countless lessons. With newfound clarity, Timmy recognized that clinging to his godparents would only demonstrate that he hadn't truly learned the most important lesson they had taught him, that true growth means accepting change, even when it breaks your heart. As the clock struck midnight, Timmy voiced his final wish with trembling voice but unwavering resolve. He wished not for himself but for every child who felt as alone as he once had, that they might experience the same transformative friendship and guidance that Cosmo and Wanda had brought into his life. The selflessness of this request caused their wands to illuminate the entire room with brilliant light, their magic responding to the pure intention behind Timmy's words. The radiance had barely dimmed when a thunderous crash shook the foundations of the house. Jorgen von Strangelwelli, the most powerful fairy in the universe, materialized in Timmy's bedroom. His massive form and military bearing typically instilled fear, but tonight his expression carried unexpected softness. For millennia, Jorgen had enforced Da rules with unyielding strictness, separating countless godchildren from their fairy godparents. Yet something in Timmy's final wish had penetrated even his hardened exterior. Jorgen explained that throughout the extensive history of fairy godchild relationships, they had encountered very few children whose hearts had truly transformed through their magical experiences. Most children, despite years with fairy godparents, still made selfish wishes until their final moment. Timmy's last wish revealed not just momentary altruism but a fundamental change in character, evidence that the purpose of fairy godparents had been fulfilled beyond expectation. He revealed the existence of the Selflessness Amendment, a rarely invoked clause in Da rules that allowed for exceptions under circumstances of extraordinary personal growth. While Timmy could no longer make wishes, his memories would remain intact, a privilege granted to fewer than a dozen godchildren throughout fairy history. Moreover, Jorgen hinted at the possibility of future encounters, his typically booming voice uncharacteristically gentle as he described how certain paths might intersect again in unexpected ways. The moment of parting arrived with inescapable finality. Cosmo and Wanda embraced Timmy, their forms solid against him rather than the intangible magic they typically were. Wanda's whispered pride was punctuated by sparkling tears that transformed into tiny butterflies as they fell. Cosmo, emotional beyond coherent speech, morphed rapidly between forms. A waterfall of tears, a heart-shaped balloon, and finally, briefly, a perfect reflection of Timmy as he had appeared on the day they first met him. With a final wave of their star-tipped wands, Cosmo and Wanda vanished, not in their usual puff of smoke, but in a gentle shower of golden light that lingered in the air like fireflies before slowly fading away. Their departure lacked the usual memory-wiping protocol, leaving Timmy with the bittersweet gift of remembrance, the ability to carry their influence forward into his adult life. 15 years passed in Dimsdale. The town experienced subtle changes. New buildings rose, old ones were repurposed, and the children who once played in its parks grew into adults with responsibilities and concerns of their own. Among these grown children was Timmy Turner, now 28 years old but still recognizable by the same optimistic smile and pink hat he occasionally wore on casual Fridays. After obtaining his teaching degree, Timmy had returned to Dimsdale Elementary School, accepting a position that Mr. Crocker had vacated following his long overdue retirement to a facility specializing in conspiracy theories and spasm management. In his classroom, Timmy implemented unconventional teaching methods that Principal Waxelplax described as magical during performance reviews. His students thrived under his guidance, particularly those who reminded him of himself, the overlooked, the misunderstood, and the lonely. On a crisp autumn morning, Timmy entered his classroom earlier than usual, needing to prepare for a special science demonstration. The room was quiet, sunlight streaming through windows that framed a perfect view of the playground where he had spent countless recesses escaping from bullies like Francis, who ironically now served as the school's surprisingly effective anti-bullying counselor. As Timmy approached his desk, he noticed something that hadn't been there the previous afternoon. A small fish bowl containing 2 goldfish, one green and one pink, their eyes conveying an intelligence that defied their apparent species. Beside the bowl lay a neatly folded note written on paper that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. The note contained just a few words, but they bridged the 15-year gap as though it had been mere minutes. Some children keep their magic forever. Love always, CNWA, smile spread across Timmy's face as he understood the profound truth contained in those simple words. The magic hadn't been in the wishes themselves, but in how they had changed him, how they had opened his heart to possibilities beyond his small town existence. That transformation had become his most valuable possession, one that no magical rule could ever take away. As his students began filing into the classroom, Timmy adjusted his pink hat and glanced at the two fish who winked at him in perfect synchronization. The greatest magic, he realized, wasn't found in fairy wands or spoken wishes, but in the endless capacity of the human heart to grow, to learn, and to pass on the gifts it had received. In that moment, the circle was complete. The once neglected boy had become the caring mentor, extending to others the same acceptance and guidance that had once saved him. And somewhere in fairy world, his name was quietly added to a very special list. Godchildren who had truly understood the magic they had been given, and in doing so, had become a kind of magic themselves.